Before we start, let's just set the rules for this module. Basically, what you are expected to do is to prepare before your lecture, prepare for your seminar. Attendance is absolutely important, is very important, extremely important. I can't emphasize this enough. Engagement with the discussion, with the questions, with the seminar, with the lecture. The lecture is not going to be one-way lecture. It's not going to be one-way communication. I'll be asking you questions, you will ask me questions, you will ask each other questions, we'll debate around the issues, and that's how to make the best and the most of this one. Is if you come here, before you come, you make your minds, you know what we're going to discuss before the lecture, you are prepared for the lecture, and the same thing for the seminar, then you're going to make the most of this lecture or this module. So you would need to read, and what you read here is going to be beyond textbooks. So I understand what you expect me to tell you. Here's the main textbook. Go to the library, pick that textbook, read that chapter. That's what you're going to be examined on. No, this is not the case. So you will always be asked to go beyond textbooks, read economics, read financial times, read something more up to date, and try to reflect on the current issues and on different debates. And if you read my first post of my first email to you, I encourage you to challenge everything. Don't buy anything from me. I ask you to challenge my own views. So that is the way to go with this module. So there's no only one fact in the world. Any story has two sides. So you need to be aware of both sides before you make your mind. Okay? So don't make it easy for anyone to sell you any story. Even myself here in this classroom. So you need to think first about what is behind this story. What is the other side of this story? Where should I be on this debate? What should I believe in? Etc. What are my reasons? And that comes to the really nice part in this module, which is there is nothing right or wrong. So it's different from any other subject you've done or any other module you've done in the School of Management here, where you expect to have a sample answer or the correct answer, the incorrect answer. There's no right or wrong. It's your views, it's what you believe in, it's your argument, and as long as you can defend your argument, as long as you can give reasons why you believe in that, then you're done. That's the idea. So there's nothing right or wrong in this model. Okay? So don't expect, for example, after the seminar, I give you the seminar, the answers for the seminar questions, because there's no answer. It is what you believe in. It is your reading. It is your mind. It's your reason, your argument. It is your job to do that. I'm not going to tell you how to think. Okay? So this is totally different from anything probably you've done before. So in any debate, you need to think carefully about why am I taking this position? Why I'm believing in this? What are my reasons? Is my argument clear? So what about the other position? What about the other side of this debate, etc.? So as I said, challenge any theory. So this lecture is not going to be about telling you this theory is correct or this theory is incorrect, or what are the limitations of this theory, or what are the good points that this given theory is trying to make. It is all up to you. It's what you believe in. It's how you buy it. Okay, so it is your story. It is not my story. Okay, and as I said, this is an optional module, so you don't have to be here. Okay, but I'm happy you are here. So I'm asking you to enjoy the module. So that is the main point here. Just try to make the most of it. Don't worry about right or wrong. Just to speak what you believe in. Okay, just give your reasons. Just try to make your argument sound good, sound reasonable, something that we can believe in, something that we can say it sounds convincing. Try to convince others. Try to think how others think as well. So that's why I'm saying you need to enjoy this module. So as I said, it's not a compulsion, or it's not you're here not because you have to be here. You're here because you choose to be here. Okay? So please enjoy it. Please make the most of this module, and I'll be always open to your feedback and discuss your views, what you personally think, And as you will see in this lecture, I'll be open to your feedback every lecture and see how to improve your experience in this module. So this was very important start for me. So before we start, we set the rules of the house, or the house rules. So now we all know what we are expected to do in this term. Okay, so these are some of the resources, and as I said in the first email I sent to you. So please bring your laptop, smartphone, tablet. I'll be always asking to look online and to engage with some questions and activities. And I will ask you to use your student number and your name so we can have one-to-one feedback if we need to. Okay? So when you attend lectures, I have record of all the questions, all your answers, any questions you may have, etc. And then we can sit at any point during this term, and then we can discuss where we are and where we want to go. So this is important. So one of the things I said, the Hanomics is this is my website, my personal website. We're going to talk about this later, about the assignment or the assessment or the coursework. So what I used to do, I used to post because the coursework used to be an essay. So I used to post the best essay on essay with the highest mark on my personal website. But for this year, probably it's going to be different because the assessment is not going to be an essay. So we'll come back to this point later. But Hanomics, you can see the lecture recorded. So this lecture is being recorded now, and you can watch it later. So it should help you for your revision. So I'll do my best to record all the lectures, but I don't promise to do that, because if at some point I feel like this negatively affected the attendance, then I'm just not going to record lectures anymore. And that is the deal. I did this last year with first-year students. I told them, okay, I'll record a lecture, but when I feel like the attendance, so that's one thing. So the lectures will be there. All lectures will be recorded. We're not going to record seminars. You need to attend the seminars, and they are not going to be recorded. Also, this is the Facebook page for the Economic Society. And this lecture is being broadcast live now and on the Economic Society webpage. So people outside Swansea can hear me now, can see these slides. Okay? Don't worry, they can't see you. Okay? So they don't see me now. They can't see me now as well. So they just can hear us now. Socrative is going to be our main platform where we engage together during the lecture. And in the lecture, if you want to speak, that's fine. So you can interrupt the lecture at any point. But from time to time, I'll post some questions on Socrative. I'll ask you to look in, post your feedback on Socrative, and your responses to these questions is not going to be seen by others. It's only me who's going to see this, and you when we have one-to-one feedback if you need to. Okay? So this is something between you and me, and your responses will. I'll be happy to discuss your responses with you at any point you need one-to-one feedback. It's tailored feedback for you. It is. It's not just very general feedback. It is made for you, and that is the main purpose of having an online platform like Socrative, because I will have record of all the responses, and then these will be individual responses. You can come back to this any time during this term. So, any questions? Okay, so that's the first part. So this is the pre-course survey. So I'm going to ask you a few questions. I haven't started the survey yet. So what I want you to do is to go online to this platform. This is the outline of my talk today. So first, I would like to very briefly go back to the basics and think of economics, politics, where international economic policy comes from. So we just want to put this into context. And then we're going to have a very brief overview of the global economy in the past and now and current issues, and what are the risks and the challenges in the global economy. And then we'll go through the module teaching, assessment, feedback, etc. All the usual stuff that you like to hear about, okay? So first question, so I'm sure you all know now that economics is about scarcity, or scarce resources. We all face the economic problem, individuals, firms, countries, and scarcity here in a relative sense, where your needs always are more than your wants. So, more than your resources. So we have always unlimited wants, but limited resource. And that scarcity problem that make us choose. We have to choose. So when you come today to the lecture, you choose to be here because there could be many reasons why you choose to be here, but you could have done something different at the same time you attended this lecture. So you couldn't, you could be, for example, having coffee with friends or anything else. So time is a resource, and that's how you choose to use your time or to allocate your time among different or between different activities. So allocating resources create trade-offs, so you need to choose. And economics is the study of making these choices, okay? So what we do as economists, we study how people or how economic agents, so economic agents here could be individuals, could be firms, could be countries, wherever, so how they make their choices. I think you're all familiar with this concept, the opportunity cost, and this is the highest valued alternative that must be given up to get your choice. So if you think having coffee with a friend now is the best thing that you could have done rather than coming to the lecture, then this is the opportunity cost of coming to the lecture. So again, that applies to college degree, etc. This is a very popular example, but what we're trying to do here is how this applies to nations as well, how this applies to different countries. So this must happen within economic system that govern these choices. There are different systems, and I think you're all aware of these. So free markets, where resources are located through interaction between supply and demand, or market forces. On the other side, we have command economies, where governments direct or command the allocation of these resources, and mixed economy, where we have both together. Okay, so again, starting from the beginning, economics is the study of making choices. Why we have to make choices? Because resources are limited and our wants are unlimited. And this economic problem faces all economic agents. Okay, so and that's why we need to make choices, and these choices are governed by the system we choose. So there are different systems. If we want to classify them into free market and command economies, you will see some in the middle. There's some mixed economies as well that can be a mix of both. Now, let's flip the coin, economics. Now let's think, what is politics? So when you hear the word politics or the term politics, what is the first thing that comes to your mind? I want you all to respond to that question, because I understand that you've done economics. Most of you probably economics is your major, so you're very familiar with that, what I just said about how we define economics and what is economics or how economics is defined. But now let's come to the other side of this coin that we are not used to think about before as economists. So as economists, we always think about economics, economic rules or economics theories, policies, etc. But there's always another side of this coin, which is politics. And that's what we're going to learn today, and probably through this module, is this line between economics and politics will fade away. So you need to see both together to understand what is happening around us. Okay? So please just tell me what you personally think of this term, politics. When you hear this, what does this mean? You all talk about government. Doesn't matter the system is corrupt or not, like the way you think the system is. But at the end of the day, when we talk about government, when we talk about policies, we talk about power and authority and the exercise of power and authority. And that's what politics about. So how does a society make a collective policy decisions when individual members have conflicting interests? So how would we decide at the end? Do we go do we do a referendum about Brexit and then we decide at the end whether to leave or to remain in the EU because the majority have decided to leave? I mean, this is one way to do it, yeah? Because if you think about it, there were millions of people who are against Brexit, but at the end of the day now, we're heading toward Brexit because the majority decided to leave the EU, okay? And this is the system, yeah? This is the mechanism. So the study of this mechanism, again, power and authority and how we make collective policy decisions, this is all about politics. Political regimes, you can classify this in different ways, but you could have at one end autocratic regimes and democratic regimes at the other end. This is the global trend in governance. This is a very interesting data set, and by the way, when you see this button, that means it can take you somewhere. So if you click that button, it could be something to read or the source of this information, and of course, this will, you need to be connected to the internet, okay? So if you are connected to the internet, it will take you to the polity index. What this index does, just in brief, so it ranks the political regimes from -10 to 10, -10 autocratic regimes, and as you move toward +10, that means this regime is democratic regime. Okay, so what we have here is the trend over last 70 years, and the red line here is the autocracies, and the blue line is democracies. So this is the number of countries, what you see here. So from 1946, we can see that the democratic regimes are increasing, and at the same time, autocratic regimes the number of autocratic regimes are decreasing. If you are interested to go beyond that, before that, this is another graph that shows the number of autocracies and democracies since 1800. Okay? And again, if you want to go to the source of this information, again, this is the data set. You can find it here. And here is the report where this chart came from. Okay? Just you need to click on that. Yeah. Well, this is as you can see, this is from somewhere between autocracy and democracy. Yeah? So we have quality scores between -5 and 5. So from -5, -10 to -5. So we're talking about autocracy. From 6 to 10, we talk about democracy. Then there's in between both, there's this stage of what we call autocracy. So this is how the polity classified different politics index classified different regimes. So anyway, that was just an overview to show you. Again, this is not what the takeaway message from this slide. The takeaway message here is that the way we make collective policy decisions are different systems. So the same way we thought of the economic systems, we thought of how we make decisions about resources, how we allocate resources, as we talk about free markets, command economies, or mixed economies. In politics, again, how we make collective policy decision. This could be classified into different regimes, but as I said, these are the two extremes. And of course, not all democracies are the same. Okay, so these are different groups as well. But if you want to make things easier, so we'd think of them as 2 or 3 different groups. But again, they are homogeneous groups. They are not very similar in many aspects. But what we're trying to see here, what is the message from this chart, is that it seems that the more countries are moving toward democracies or democratic regimes and less autocratic regimes. But we still have, as you can see, this is 2017. We have more democratic regimes compared to autocratic regimes. Of course, there will be some critics to the Polity Index itself, but if you want to read more about Polity Index and how it is compiled, how it is constructed, then just click on that source. You'll go back and see if you are interested to know more about this. But let's just go back to the point. Okay? So the point, what is economics, what is politics? Why do we do that? Why do we need to learn these phases? Why do we need to learn about what is economics? What is politics? Okay? Because this is where we're coming from. When we talk about international economic policy, is the mix between these two. So you have to think in not just as an economist, you need to think that as a politician as well. Okay? Because making decision or thinking this is the best policy is one thing, and how to promote this in a society and to translate this into an action or into policy, this is another thing. Okay? So that's why this is where we're coming from. And that's why back in ages, economics was actually first known as political economy. Why is it political economy? Because there's some sort of interaction between economics and politics. So it is very important to understand how both affect each other. So how politics affect economic outcomes, and how public policy is created and implemented. And again, this gives you the idea of what I'm trying to highlight here is the interaction between economics and politics. So this is one of the quotes I would like to share with you. Economists must not only know their economic models, that's what we're good at, that's what we try to learn, but also understand politics, interest, conflict, and etc. So these are very important. And as I said, the economic policy one thing, or economics is one thing, but there's the other side of this coin, which is politics, which is more concerned about how to translate these into policies, how to translate these beliefs or these changes into policies. You need to understand the politics behind it. You need to understand interest. You need to understand conflict, etc. Okay, so this is another quote. If economics is the study of the optimal use of the scarce resources, that's what we all learn. So that's what we all understand, because we all did economics. But also, you need to know that political economy begins with the political nature of decision making, and is concerned with how politics will affect economic choices in a society. So what is the takeaway message so far? The takeaway message so far is that you need to know economics, you need to think about politics as well. Don't see one side of this coin. You need to see the other side of the coin as well. Okay? So, international economic policy. Let's just look at the global economy. Let's see where this all come from. So by now we should understand that economic factors are important in shaping the global economy, but political factors are important too. And that is the main message I've been trying to deliver since I started today. Economics and politics, they both are two sides of the same coin, and understanding the politics of the global economy is important too. So if you take this from within a nation or a society, apply this to the global economy with some differences, which what we're going to learn about. Again, it applies to the global economy. Politics is important too. So the next point is that this sort of module or this sort of subject is analyze the international issues using different analytical tools and theoretical perspectives. That means you would need to, not just to understand or to make a good argument, you need to refer to theories and literature, what people say about that. Okay? So it's not just your own voice. You still need to be equipped with awareness, understanding of the literature, of what others think about this, and etc. So if I talk about, for example, political action by a nation state would affect different outcomes like international trade, international finance. When we talk about international trade, till today, now you will find people opposing free trade. So we want to understand why they are against free trade. So again, how would you explain this? I'm not asking you whether you are with or against. I'm asking you to understand both sides. It doesn't matter where you are from this debate or from this argument. So if you're supporting free trade, then why? But even if you're supporting free trade, you still need to understand why people oppose, why some groups sit against free trade. Okay? And one important lesson that you really need to learn, that any economic policy, any policy has a cost. There's no free policy, there's no policy without a cost. And all of those who are expected to pay the bill or pay the cost of this policy, those who will be opposing or be against that policy. Those who will benefit from that policy obviously will be very supportive to the policy. Okay? So always think of who's paying the cost of this change or this policy. So there's no policy that is good for everyone. There'll be always somebody who's negatively affected by that change or by that decision or by that policy. So even if you are with one side, you still need to think of why the other side or where they come from. And that is the main idea here. So if you want to understand this, you need to understand both. If you want to understand why people oppose trade, why people are against trade, or why some people support trade, or some groups against international trade or free trade, then you still need to think of economics and politics in the same time. So these are examples of decision made by one nation, but again, it has a major or a great impact on the world economy. One of these is the collapse of Bretton Woods monetary system. Foreign currencies at some point were fixed in relation to the US dollar. The US dollar was the only currency that is convertible to gold. In 1971, the American president announced the suspension of the dollar's convertibility into gold. This affects the whole world, the whole system. Okay? So what I'm trying to say here is, this is an example of a decision taken by one nation, has an impact in the whole world. Another example is the Arab oil embargo, or what we call what is known as the first oil shock. It began in October 1973. Arab countries, they proclaimed oil embargo in response to the American involvement in the Arab-Israeli war. So these are the countries that were affected by the embargo: Canada, Japan, Netherlands, UK, and the US. And as a result of that, other countries tried to disassociate themselves from the US foreign policy because they don't want to be affected by this decision. So again, this is a decision taken by a few countries and affected many others outside their borders. And that is the main point here. Another example is the third world debt crisis. So the crisis happened in Latin America, and again had some impact on these countries, and they needed the help or assistance from the IMF, and this came at some cost to their social cost, to, of course, to the poor people in those countries. So these are just examples. You know who are these people, I guess. Okay, good. So the next question is for you. So what I'm trying to show you, what I showed you is examples of decisions taken by one nation or a few nations, and then it has a greater impact in the world economy or outside their borders as well. So please go back to Socrates and try to answer the question, you see. So the question is for you as individuals: do you think Brexit may affect you? The answer is yes or no. So you need to explain. If yes, you need to explain how is it going to affect you. If no, explain why do you expect it is not going to affect you. So As you see, there's no right or wrong answer. It's what you think. But I want to know your argument. Why you think it affects you, or why you think it is not going to affect you. Sorry? Oh, yeah. So the answer is not just about yes or no. It's about why. Why you think so. What reasons, what are your reasons to say yes or to say no? Okay? After this question, it will come to the point where we start practicing politics. Okay? So that's what I used to do with the students last year and the year before. So this, now we've got 50, we've done 50 minutes, and there are two choices. So, you know, it's time for decisions, making decisions. So I always ask to whether you prefer to carry on the lecture and finish early, and ask people to vote for that, or to stop and have a break, 10 minutes break, and come back and start the next part of the lecture. Okay? So just think, have a thought about it. Just I'll give you a few more seconds to respond to that question, and then I'll ask you to vote for whether to have a break, or whether to carry on and finish early, or have a break and then come back for the next part of the lecture. Okay? So now just focus on the question. Please give me your responses, because if you respond to the first question, there's another question about the second person. This one. I'm sure you know who it is. Okay? So please answer the second question. If you answer the first question about Brexit, please answer the second question about Mr. Trump. And the question is very easy. It is whether you follow his policy and, more importantly, his tweets or not. You're not, but we are not in the US. But again, this is an example of how important decisions made or policies made outside the UK still have some impact or gather some interest within another country. So again, the US is a very powerful economy, is a superpower today, and this is something we're going to discuss in a different lecture. But my question now to you is whether you really follow the Trumponomics, or there's a concept now for the way Trump or his policies in the US. So please let me know your views on that, and then now it's time to vote. So the first decision is, or the first choice is, carry on and finish early, or have a break and come back for the next part of the lecture. So if you want to carry on, please raise your hand. Okay, we need to count. Okay, so if you want a break, raise your hand. Okay, I think it sounds like the majority asking for a break. So here's the deal, and that's what I used to do with the students last year and the year before. So we have a group who want to carry on without having a break, and they lost this vote. Okay, so next time we'll do this again, but your job now, your task now, is to convince others next time when I ask the same question to vote for carrying on and not having a break. So we'll see at the end which group will convince the other one. Okay? So we have a break. I'll see you in 10 minutes. If you didn't respond to the questions, feel free to carry on and give me your responses. And I'll see you in 10 minutes for the next part of the lecture. Thank you.
I should have just not attended.
Okay, let's start again. So what we did now, we, as I said, if we want to take only one message from what we did, do you know what this message is? You see that line between economics and politics? It doesn't exist anymore, yeah? So you should always think of both sides of this coin, okay? And that's how you may be able to explain different policies or different actions taken by a state or a country or a government, etc. So what we want to do now is there are two points I want to cover. I want to look at what's happened in the past, and I'm going to go through this very quickly, but the slide will be there if you want to read it in details, and there will be some references at the end. But what I want to focus on is this part before we jump to the usual stuff about the module, what topics we are going to cover, the assessment, etc., all the things that you want to know about this course. So as I said, if you want to think of what happened in the past, the last 100 years or the 20th century, you probably could think of this as before the First World War, pre-1914, and then the period between the two World Wars, the first one and the second one, and then post-1945. So very quickly, this is something we're going to cover in detail later when we talk about mercantilism, next lecture, when we talk about the theories part. Political power equated with wealth, and vice versa. So wealth was important, and this is something we are going to discuss in detail next lecture. And if we think about the gold standard at that point, or the international monetary system at that point, was based on the gold standard. I'm sure now you must have heard this before. What is the gold standard? What it means? So it's a fixed exchange rate, which has some benefits. It reduces uncertainty and risk of that comes with the exchange rate, etc. So, and as I said, this is something, again, there's one of the lectures will be on international monetary system, and we'll talk about this in more detail. So between the First World War and the Second World War, it was an economic chaos, economic interdependence started by the Second the First World War, and then between both wars, it wasn't really a good time. So after 1945, so unprecedented rates of economic growth, GDP grew at faster rate than before 1945. World trade grew as well more rapidly than with world production, etc. And this period was characterized by multilateralism and embedded liberalism. So multilateralism, when we, rather than fighting, rather than having all this disruption, so we could sit and we could negotiate, we could set a table, and then we set rules and we institutionalize the international relationships. So we can international relations. We can have institutions that look after different aspects of international relation, like trade. You see, we have the World Trade Organization, the World Bank, IMF, etc., the International Monetary Fund, and etc. So as I said, I'll just go quickly through this one. But the main point I want to highlight from this part of the lecture is the interconnectedness, and that's what we're gonna explain during this course, how the world become very interconnected. What happened in one part would affect other parts as well. So we have what the conflict that's going on in the Middle East and North Africa is somehow affecting Europe. We have the refugee crisis, we have all these issues with terrorism, etc. So all this is still affecting Europe. So it is actually taking place outside Europe, but Europe is still affected by what is happening there. So my point here, if we go back to 2008, what happened in the global financial crisis affected the entire world. So where did it start? It started in one country, started in the US. So this is the concept, that's what I'm talking about, the interconnectedness. So the world economy architecture now became very interconnected, and when something happens in one part of the world, it is likely that it will have some contagious effect or some spillover on other parts of the world. So that means economic policies made by other countries, especially major countries like the US, the UK, or European Union, or China, India, Brazil. And as you see through this module, we look at all developments in these different aspects. Will have any change in the economic policy in these countries would have some impact on the world economy as well. So the world is shrinking, so becoming very interconnected, and this is the second message. So the first message was the line between politics and economics, and you need to think of both. The second message from this lecture is the global interconnectedness. So examples of this, I started with the conflict in the MENA region or the Middle East. Now, if you think about what happened in 1997, the Asian financial crisis, again, it had some impact on other regions as well. So whenever a crisis, a shock, a problem happen in one part in the world, again, this will affect other parts in the world. And this is one of the features of the world economy today. So this sort of interconnectedness. Okay? So another example, we really talk about the global financial crisis happened in one country, and then it affects other countries too. So the issues that we are, if we now come to the current issues or today, what is happening today? So in the next few slides, I just have some ideas about what the world economy today looks like. So before I start with this, let's just go back to the key messages of this lecture. So the first one is the economics and politics line. So everything, these are two sides of the same coin. The second point is the interconnectedness, or the global economy is very interconnected today, and anything or any crisis or shock happen in one part or some part of this world it is likely to have some impact on other parts as well. And these key messages will carry on with us during this term, so for the whole term. So we'll always think about interconnectedness, about the politics behind economics, and etc. But what I want to finish this part with is today. What is happening today? This is how the global economy looks like today. So what you see is the GDP growth, for example. So if you see, we're looking after the crisis after 2008 and how the world economy today is somehow recovering from that downturn. So what you see is the GDP growth in advanced economies and emerging economies, and it seems that the global economy is recovering, and this recovery is driven mainly by trade and investment. The second point is, just remember, this is what features the global economy today. So we looked very quickly about what happened in the past, and this is something we'll cover in detail in the coming lectures. But for now, let's just think, or let's just look at what are the prospects, risks, and challenges in the world economy today. So what we see is there's some sort of recovery, and it seems to continue in 2017 and hopefully in 2018. So the picture sounds better than how it was a few years ago. On the same time, we have drops in oil prices, and this is one of the new topics that I added to this module. When we come to the topics we'll cover this module, you'll see, we'll talk about the geopolitics of oil prices and global liquidity. So it is very important to, if you understand the politics of oil properly, this will explain many things in the world, many conflicts happening now in the world. It will give you a different angle of this, on how to think about these events and these conflicts. So this is one thing. So what we saw this is the oil price. So it dropped. It's in general, we have a drop in commodity prices, but it's more profound and notable in oil prices as well. There is some, or the reason most people would agree that because they higher than expected US shale production. So this is again a decision made in one part in the world affecting oil prices in the whole world. So what are the risks? What the problems we're facing today is the incomplete recovery. So what we saw now is good in the near term or the short term, but in the longer term or the medium term, this is not really complete. Why? Because the growth rate or the expectation or the projection of the growth rate in the medium term doesn't seem to be very high. It's very modest, and the inflation remains very low, below the targets in many countries. And that's a question for you. So just follow this link. You will read a nice article about explaining why is it a problem when we have a very low inflation rate, and why do we have low inflation rate in most advanced economy. And more importantly here to people who live in the UK is productivity. Productivity is a concern in many countries, in many advanced economies in the world, and especially in the UK. And there was a really nice and recent, this is an article in Financial Times. So it actually draws on another report by Institute of Physical Studies, so IFS. So they project that over the next decade, 10 years, there will be no change in or no increase in real wages in the UK. So again, it goes back to productivity, slow productivity in the UK. And as I said, this problem or this concern or this issue is not only in the UK, it faces most advanced economies. And by the way, if you're really interested about what is going on or the discussion that's going on around this, this is the conference last month was in Paris. So if you click in this link, it will take you to the video, the presentation, and the papers were presented in that conference. So that happened last month. So that's in this is the case with advanced economies. On the other side, the emerging market economies and low-income countries, they still continue to adjust to lower commodity revenues. Remember, this is one of the problems here. So commodity exporters will actually suffer from lower prices, and that's why we think, or that's why the projection for the medium term are not as optimistic as in the short term. So again, this is a very recent conference, so it would be nice if you want to have a look at it if you're interested. Also, the risks in the global economy today is the rising financial vulnerabilities. And if there's a really nice documentary by the BBC Radio 4, What Keeps the Chancellor Awake? So just if you click here, it will take you to the recording of this. But in brief, the main idea here is that how there's a possibility of sudden tightening of global financial condition. But if I go back to the report itself, we talk about how the financial condition in China, for example, may affect what is happening in the UK. There's a rapid increase in private sector debt, and I think we all in debt in this country. I don't know about you. I'm talking about myself as well. So I would imagine that most people in debt. So this is something not promising as well, though this is some of the risks in the medium term. Another thing is the non-performing loans, those who, or bad loans that are not really guaranteed or etc. So this could lead to issues in the medium term. What are other risks? Policy uncertainty. We all know about Brexit. Every day we hear about this in the news. And in general, inward-looking policies, what's happening in the US, in the UK, again, it's very similar to what's happening in some other countries as well. So this is a very, this is, by the way, this is The Economist. There's a report about this, how uncertainty, or how the UK government isn't really, or doesn't know which direction to take. Brexit, is it hard Brexit? Is it soft Brexit? Do we need another referendum after we have a deal? Do we have to have a deal? So are we in the custom union, or are we in a custom union, or what sort of agreement we're going to have, etc. So this is what policy uncertainty, or what risks policy uncertainty may have on not just the UK economy, by the way. It affects Europe, it affects the whole world. So these events, as you see, happening in one country, but still have some impact on other countries too. So this is the report about what America First means. And again, this is an example of what we call the inward-looking policies, or more focusing on these sort of mercantilist policies, and that's what we're going to learn in the next lecture, okay, next week. This is something we added to the model as well, is the geopolitical risk or tension or conflict. You can't study international economic policy without thinking of what is happening in, not just in the Middle East, in other regions as well, how the rising geopolitical risk or tension will affect the global economy. This is one of the risks that the global economy faces. And by the way, this is the GBR, is the Geopolitical Risk Index. Again, whenever you see that button, just for curiosity at least, just click that button and see what is where it is taking you. It would be nice things. It could be like a reference or a source or more details about the topic. But in general, if you believe that this index, if you want to know how it is constructed, please go and read it. But let's say if you believe this is a good measure, or some sort of measure of geopolitical risks or tension in the world, you'll see how this is from 2010 till 2017. Okay, you see how the there's an upward trend. It is increasing. Again, this has some implication, and this is something we cannot ignore when we study international economic policy. Okay, and this is one of the new topics I added to this module this year. Okay, so I hope you're going to enjoy it. Do you know what this is about? Again, we're still talking about the rising political tension, but do you know what that about? It's about the size of the nuclear button from America and North Korea. So Trump thinking that his button is bigger than the North Korean one. So if you click on that Washington Post, it will show you some funny cartoons about the different sizes of nuclear power plants. Anyway, so these are an example of what I'm talking about, the rising geopolitical tension. And this has impacts on growth and the global economy in general in the medium term. This happened a few days ago. Did you hear about that? So what about this one? Yeah. Yeah, you want to show the American might? Yeah? Let's take the tanks to the streets. Okay? So what sort of message this deliver? Okay? Just, when you talk about the US, the biggest defense budget in the whole world, in the entire world, probably in the entire history, taking their tanks to the streets. What sort of message? I heard today on BBC that the North Korean guy is going to do one as well. Yeah, seriously. I just heard that today morning on the way to the lecture when I came on the way to the university. Okay, so this is something you can't just close your eyes about. You still need to think. Yes, this is politics. It affects us. It affects economics, all our lives as well. Even if you study economics or not, this is what. When one of these guys presses a button, we have to hide. We need to find somewhere. Anyway, so that's the idea. So again, I'm just trying to show you that how geopolitical tension, well, this is not economics, but it affects economics. This is more politics, more conflict, etc., but it still affects economics. Okay, so we need to keep this in mind when we do international economic policy. And as I said, this is one of the new topics in this module. I'll come back to what topics we're going to cover in this module in a minute. Okay, so I'm glad that you heard about all these issues. So now you are with me in the same boat. We're thinking together about how these events or how these geopolitical tensions affect economic outcome or the global economy. This is like a side issue. I'm not going to really explore this one, but it's more about inequality. And what you see now is related to Europe. And this is data from the IMF. The IMF plot, if you follow this link, you'll read the article, but just in brief, what it says, this is the unemployment rate, the youth unemployment rate compared to elderly unemployment rate. So this is the intergenerational gap. So this is the difference between unemployment, youth unemployment, and elderly ones. So you see how unemployment, this is something concerns you, yeah? This is something affects you. So if you move to this, what is the main message in this graph? Is that after 2008, this gap is getting really wider, it's getting bigger. So it's really the shock. So do you remember any policy, as well as any shock, there is somebody paying the cost for that. So who's paying or who is hit the hardest was young people. Okay, and that shows you what happened after 2002. And again, it's a really interesting article if you would like to learn more about this. And this is from the same article, but this gives you the presentation. So if you want to watch the video, just click on that tab, that button, and you will watch the video. So again, it shows the same thing. So this is, you see how the gap is widening after 2008, and this relative poverty. Again, these are youth, and these are elderly people. So you see how youth are really paying the cost of these policies or these problems. Okay, so young people are paying the cost. You guys paying the cost. You don't see it directly now, but when you go to the job market, this is something you're gonna notice. One more thing, if you think of, I don't know if you hear this debate after Brexit, that how the final outcome was mainly influenced by elderly more than young people. I don't know if that's true or not, but this is one of the issues I heard after the Brexit. Anyway, so as I said, we're not gonna really talk about this much about inequality and relative poverty and youth unemployment, but again, these are issues that related to the world economy, that things are, again, all these issues, geopolitical tension, going back to financial vulnerabilities, all these issues need collective actions, need coordination, need different countries to work together to solve these issues. Anyway, so now let's get to the point where what you're actually interested in today is what we're going to do, what the assessment is going to look like, and what is this module about. I think now we've got an idea what we're trying to do in this module. So basically, we're trying to see how economic policy is developed in the international context, because we're talking about global economy. We look back last century and see what happened in international economic policy decisions and the current challenges and considerations. So what are the challenges? So I'll give you a brief introduction or overview of what sort of challenges we are having in the global economy today. So these are the main building blocks or the main things that we want to cover or what we're aiming to do in this module. So you need to understand politics of the global economy. You need to be able to debate on international economic policy issues. You need to be able to talk about Brexit, to take where you are from Brexit, what are your reasons are, etc. So these are issues that you really need to be able to discuss and debate on. So again, you need to be critical. And as I said, any story has two sides. So you need to know both sides. You need to make your argument convincing, etc. And how power, you need always to think of politics, not just economics. Always think of power, okay? How power is exercised in the political economy, and this is the coursework question. Let me go back to this now. And you should demonstrate your understanding of the literature as well. So I understand, I ask you to go beyond textbooks, because I want you to know, to be up to date, to know what are the main challenges or the current challenges and issues. But also you still need to understand theories, you still need to demonstrate that you understand the literature and main debates in the literature as well. These are the lectures. Now we had the first one from 11 to 1 every week here. The seminars will have different timing and groups for the seminars. So we have 3 groups basically. Check your timetable, which group you are in, because you've been allocated to these different groups. I think the SI does this usually, but now you should notice that there will be 3 seminars. These will be group seminars. So all groups will be in one group, these 3 seminars. So the timing and location, again, should be in your timetable. And as I said, participation, engagement in the discussion during lecture and seminars through the platform or discussion here. You can take the mic, you can interrupt me, you can ask questions. This is very important. This is how you make the most of this module. The teaching materials, this lecture notes, if you check the Blackboard, it'll be a lecture summary or outline. I usually post this a few days before the lecture, just to give you an idea about what we are going to discuss. And then after the lecture, I put a more detailed notes like this one. So this one will be on Blackboard after the lecture. But the lecture outline or the summary for the first lecture was there online probably a few days ago. Links to external sources, as you see now. So there's a reading list, the textbook, the usual stuff. You can see this on Blackboard and the module handbook, which textbook to look at, and also at the end of the lecture, you'll see some references to the textbooks, but again, I always encourage you to go beyond this and check the external sources, the links I include in the lectures. Okay, it's very interesting, and I'm sure you're gonna like it. So just click. Whenever you see a button, please click on that button, see where it takes you. Okay, it must be something interesting, or I think you will find interesting. Hopefully, these are my office hours. Thursday, Friday. Please. Ask your questions and ask your question anywhere, anytime, that's fine, but also use the office hours. So you can ask me in the lecture, you can ask me the question outside the lecture, but also you can come and see me anytime during my office hours. You can use my email if you want to send me your question by email. And by the way, and it's something I did before last year and the first term this year, and people like it, we still, if you can, when we go toward the exam time, you don't have to come to campus to meet me. We can meet online. So I offer this to people, and people were really happy. So, but this is not during the beginning of the term. Of course, I'm talking about the exam time when you're busy with the revision, when you're not in campus, and you still want to meet me. We still can meet online. Okay. But I will announce these during the revision time. So these are the topics. Probably now you get an idea about what we are going to discuss. So from our discussion now, basically we start with basic things, theories, literature or textbook discussion around theories, and then the very important point about power in global economy, or the global economy, how power is exercised in the global economy, what makes a country or nation a superpower, okay? How we measure power. Is it economic power? Is it military power? Or what sort of power? Exactly. So there are different sorts or different types of power. So this is something you need to learn about. Okay. So the rising power of some of the developing countries, or how China, for example, now is a very important actor in the global economy. How Brazil, how India, how these countries collectively or together, which we call BRICS, how these BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China, how they becoming very important actors in the world economy. So this is something we're going to talk about in these two points, these two topics: power in global economy and economic development and global power shift. Politics of trade, financial monetary system. So all these 5 points, all these 5 topics, we covered them before, but this, previously in the last year with the other group, but the new topic that I proposed and I included this model this year is the diffusion of shocks and geopolitical risks. Again, we'll think about how, when a shock happens in one country, how this shock affects another country, how geopolitical risks or geopolitical tensions in other parts of the world, how it affects the entire world. Anyway, so this is a new topic, and I hope you will enjoy it. Assessment. So we have 3% group assignment. The format of the assessment is different from the last 2 years, because the assessment was an essay, 2,000 words, very typical way of assessing your knowledge. But now we're talking about the 21st century, so we're thinking differently. So what we're trying to do here is to ask you to record 4-minute video, and this is going to be a group work. So initially I thought that groups could be 1 to 5, but then I thought that meaning that anyone who wants to work alone, they can, but I think this is not the best way to go. So make sure you choose somebody, at least if you work with only one more person. So the groups has to be from 2 to 5. So max 5 is a maximum. It could be 2, 3, 4, or 5 people maximum. So you work together in producing a video to address the coursework question. And by the way, you are not the first group to do this. We tried this last term, and we had really amazing videos from second-year students. Okay, I'm going to share this with you. I'm going to send you examples of their work. It wasn't this model. It was with Professor Nigel Larry in intermediate microeconomics. They did really good job, and I saw at least 5 or 6 videos they produced. Okay, therefore they produced more than that, but I saw the the best 3 to 5 videos. They are on YouTube. I'll share the links with you to show you how students become very creative, how they really can. And again, they're trying to explain a very basic economics concept, but again, the way you explain it, the way you produce this video, the way you show your knowledge, your creativity is really important. So anyway, so if you have any question about the format of the coursework, you can always come back to me. But just for now, the coursework is going to be a group assignment. We'll be producing a 4-minute video, and then that counts 30% of the assessment or the total mark. Then 70% is the usual exam at the end, which is 2 hours unseen examination. Feedback the usual way, 3 weeks after submission, and this is the question. So this is the coursework question. Using specific real-world examples to frame your discussion, explain how power is exercised in the global political economy. Do you see that? This is a very open-ended question. You can talk about anything, okay? So as I said in the beginning, that's the deal. There's no right or wrong. So anything you say is right, it's correct. You're gonna get, a good mark for that. But the good mark here, under one condition, is that you defend your argument, you make it clear, you make it sound convincing, even if I don't believe it myself, or even if I disagree with your views. That doesn't mean that you're gonna be penalized for that, of course. What I wanted you to do is to actually challenge my views. Not just my own views, challenge anything. It's just the way you think about things. Just always think about the other side of the same story, okay? Don't buy any story easily or without thinking carefully about it. So anyway, so with this question, you can talk about anything. But again, what I'm interested in to see is what sort of power we're talking about. Are we talking about economic power? We're going to have 2 lectures on that. So are we talking about military power? Are you talking about soft power, hard power? And a new concept that came having economics recently is sharp power. So just you look for these. But anyway, we're going to come back to this and talk about it. So what sort of power are we talking about? Okay? What you're trying to explain, you need to use specific examples, not just talking like a textbook example. I want you to actually refer to an event or an action taken by a country and say, this is an example of what I'm talking about. This is the sort of power I'm talking about, and this is how it is exercised in the world economy. And this is how it affects other countries or wherever how you're going to explain this. So this is, we're going to talk about this later. If you want, you can come to my office hours. We can discuss it in detail. You can produce the video the way you like. You can put presentation, you can put audio, you can be yourself, like record one of yourself. Like if you are a group of 5, only one, all of you can be in the video. So there's no restriction or guideline on how you produce that video. It's up to you. But there's one thing you should know is that Camtasia is a really good software to edit videos. So you can make a video using your mobile phone or a camera or whatever. Then if you want to make some like editing, you can use Camtasia. It's installed in all computers in Psalm 128, the first floor. Okay? It's not a free software. So we have a license to have it in one lab. So in 128, it's in all computers there. Okay? So if you want to, and by the way, there's no seminars this week, and that's the reason we don't have seminars this week, because I want to give you the chance to go downstairs to the Psalm 128 and practice Camtasia when you get time this week. Okay? So there will be no seminars this week, but the deal is, in return, you should really think of how to use Camtasia to produce videos. There are tutorials, free tutorials. When you log in, you can access these tutorials, show you how to produce a video. Okay, the deadline. Yes? Do you have to do that? No. Well, if you want to, that's fine. If you want to say, well, according to person A, this could be defined. It's the way you make it interesting. Even with the essay part, by the way, I ask the students to be creative, to do something more interesting. So what I'm looking at here is that how creative you could be. Yeah, it's also, but we're looking at the knowledge as well. So if you feel like, okay, I'm not going to produce the best video ever, but at least, so what about the content? What is the message you're trying to deliver? That is more important than how good the video is itself. Okay, of course, if you have got both, if you do a good video, good content, that'll be perfect. Okay, and that is the idea. So the deadline, that's you. The deadline, by the deadline, so all students look like this person, and that's me. So this is something new I want to try as well, which is usually students when we do a coursework, well, I mark the coursework, I give them feedback, written feedback on how they've done in the coursework, etc. But what I'm trying to do, because this is a very open-ended question, I'm trying to have this sort of dialogue or discussion with you about my own views as well. So in the lecture, I'll be talking about different views, including my own views with others as well. But after the coursework, when you submit your coursework, so before last year, I used to reward the best performers or the top, or the highest, they say with the highest mark, that by uploading it on Hanomics. But in this case, we can't upload this on Hanomics, but we could do something differently. We're going to have an interview. So you're going to interview me, where I'm going to answer your questions. So you're going to be asking me the same question I asked you. Well, you can ask anything about that topic. And then we will have this as like in a form of interview. So who's going to interview me? The group with the highest mark, with the best video. Okay? So they're going to interview me. The others will be audience, but they will be allowed to ask questions at the end. The good news is this is coming in the exam. There'll be a question on this in the exam. So whatever discussion we will have, there'll be one question in the exam. Is that clear or not? Not clear enough? Okay. So what I'm trying to say here, it is important to work hard in the coursework to learn different types of power, different examples of how power is exercised in the global economy. It is important to prepare questions for me when we come to the interview. So I'll be sitting there. We'll do the interview downstairs on room 10, the one in the ground floor. So I'll be sitting there. I'll open the floor to all your questions, but we'll start with those who got the best video, who made the best video compared to the other groups. So I'll answer their question, and also we invite a member of staff from the economics department. So we'll be joined by somebody else. It could be Nigel, or it could be David Blackaby, it could be somebody who's actually interested in the topic as well. Okay, so I'm going to extend the invitation to the other staff, hoping that one or two member of staff will join the interview, and you will be the people who are going to ask questions. You're not going to be asked a question in that interview. You're going to be asked your questions. So again, you need to think about good questions, because that reflects your knowledge as well and understanding. So not just throwing questions that makes no sense. Okay, so this is something you need to prepare for, and that's the reason we have the deadline after Easter holiday. So we've got plenty of time to prepare for this, and I'm happy to answer all your questions. Any question you have now? Yeah. No, this is not a question in the exam. You get me wrong. I'm saying the question will be related to this topic. This is not going to be. No, it's not. No, it's not that way. So you get this wrong. So sorry if I didn't make that clear. I didn't mean that this question will come again in the exam. I said there will be a question related to that topic in the exam. And if you look at the past two papers, the only two papers we got, you'll see that same question coming again. That means how important this topic is important, really. If you do international economic policy, you need to understand power. If you don't know how power is exercised in the global economy, then you didn't do international economic policy. And that's the main point. So my point here is there will be a question related to our discussion, to the interview, to the coursework, to the topic of how power is exercised in the global economy. Okay? So it's not the same question. I can ask 100 questions related to that topic. Okay? And I mean, I expect you to bring your own questions to the interview as well, to ask me. Okay? And I'll try to prepare the best I can. So I'm not claiming that I will answer all the questions or I can answer the questions, but I'll try. I'll do my best.
Is the exam structure standard 5?
It is the same. No, it's not 5. It is the same like the year before, and last year and the year before. You've got, it's in the handbook, but you've got section A and section B. Section A, 2 questions you have to answer. Section B, 2 questions, you choose one. Okay? And again, this information about the exam structure is already in the model handbook. So again, if you didn't hear this, so there will be two sections. Section A, 2 questions you have to answer. Section B, 2 questions, you answer only one of them. So you choose one of 2. Okay? So in total, in the exam, you answer 3 questions. Okay? Okay, anyway, so are you happy with the interview idea? So if you really prepare well for the video, you put some effort, then you're actually going to have more questions to ask as well. So you're going to ask me those questions, but remember, I didn't promise that I'm going to answer all questions. Okay. But I'll do my best. Okay, because some of the questions I would imagine would be tricky questions. Okay, but I'll try my best. So again, if you ask 3 questions, that means you're somebody who really prepared very well for this. It's not something. So it reflects. Asking a good question reflects your knowledge as well. How much you prepared for this. Okay, some people like throwing just a question in there doesn't really. So you need to think about good questions to ask. Anyway, and think about the content of your coursework as well, the content of your video as well. That's important. Anyway, so we'll talk about this anytime you want later, before that as well. Okay, so what's next? What next? So that's what we're gonna do always. So this is what we did in the lecture. These are the questions for the next seminar. So every lecture, at the end of the lecture, I'll tell you the questions we'll cover in the seminar. So I'm hoping that you will prepare for this. What's globalization? Why is it argued that globalization benefits rich countries more than poor countries? Again, you see, there's no right or wrong about these answers, about these questions. So there's no right or wrong answer. It is what you think. It is your argument. It is your reasons. The last question: does globalization inevitably limit the autonomy of states? This question came in the exam the year before last year. Okay. Again, there's no right answer. There's no wrong answer. It is how you explain your answer. So this is what we're going to cover in the next lecture. As I said, the first lecture will be theories. And these are the readings for this lecture. These are the references. Before you go, I have a couple of announcements to do. But before we do that, every lecture, I will ask you to assess the lecture, to rate the lecture, and tell me what you like about the lecture, what you don't like about the lecture, what you would like to see in the next lecture. I have a couple of announcements before you go about the next lecture and about two events I would like to organize. Before you go, so this is something we did last year, and we got really good feedback from students about it. So, and I would like to organize this week. Last year, and I would like to organize this again this year. So it's a football tournament. We had a 5-a-side tournament. So we got 7 players, 1 staff member in each team, and a female student. And there were prizes for the winning team. So if you would like to take part in this, if you would like to organize this, please talk to me and send me an email, and I'm happy to start organizing this for you. The department is already organizing something for the whole department. We can join as a team for this module, because what they're aiming to do is to have a team from every module. So they will have, let's say, international economic policy, against, I don't know, like advanced economic analysis or wherever. So you've got teams from different, are formed based on different modules. So this is something, again, we could join then if you're happy to have your team, the international economic policy team. Okay, and that means you will have me in your team. Okay, so please don't speak to another colleague there. Another lecture says, please come with our team for international economic policy. Anyway, so this is one thing. Another thing I did last year, if you fancy table tennis, I challenged them for 10 marks for the coursework. First year students last year. Not your cohort, not this group, because I told you the year before last year. But this last year, I challenged them for 10 marks. If anyone win, they play against me. So if anyone win the game, they get 10 marks for the coursework. Guess how many got 10 marks? None. Well done. Yes, because no one won. So I play about 20 games, no one won. Okay? So the same challenge is here as well. If you like the challenge, please contact me. The last thing is the employability talk. We talk about youth unemployment. Next lecture, the first half an hour, we'll have the employability team from the school. They will talk to you about how they can help you, okay, to improve or to get a job after your graduation. So they will talk about jobs and career prospects. So please come on time next lecture. So they'll take the first half in the lecture. Okay, so any questions? No questions? Okay. Thank you so much. I'll see you next week.